Welcome to another episode of Founders Club. Today we're going to be talking to Rick Warner, the founder of the Navigator Sale System and a top producing real estate agent in San Francisco. We're going to be talking about his incredible story of being nearly homeless, living in a tool shed, addicted to drugs, to becoming a top producing real estate agent selling multi-million-dollar homes in San Francisco. If you have any questions, put them in the box down below. Make sure you hit that like button so other people just like you can find this video. Check out the links in the description below. And as always, if you like money, you like real estate, hit that subscribe button and we'll see you on the inside. Welcome to Founders Club, the show for real estate entrepreneurs. All right, Rick, welcome to Founders Club. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, Oliver. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, likewise. And what I'm really excited about is to kind of hear about your story, because I know you've got a pretty incredible story of, battling addiction and living in a tool shed for 11 months, borderline homeless, and now you're selling multi-million-dollar homes in San Francisco. So why don't we just start with kind of your background and what that was like, at the beginning stages where you were in that battling addiction phase and kind of, living in a tool shed.
Okay, great. It's so funny. That's where everybody wants to start in the sensational story of, I appreciate you call it borderline homelessness, because I do always like pointing out, like, I wasn't actually homeless. That it's almost disrespectful to the people that are living on the streets. I had a roof over my head. It just happened to be that it was a tool shed and a sleeping bag. And yeah, it was my best efforts in life led me to a spot where by the time I was 20, I was totally addicted to drugs. Cocaine. I loved cocaine and alcohol, and I smoked weed every day. Blah blah. I was stealing money out of the cash register to afford my habit. The tool shed was at a driving range. I was a golf instructor, so it was very kind of, I don't know. I feel like it was a little bit cliche, but yeah, that is what happened. That's where I found myself, and really, and one of the things that I know your audience is not filled with necessarily a bunch of people that have that experience, but I think there's this human experience of feeling stuck or feeling like, oh, it's never going to any better, or man, how I know I want things to be differently, but how do I go about actually doing something different? And then you also may have in your audience people that are like me, which is quitters. I basically, man, if things got difficult at all, I quit. And so for a guy like me living in a tool shed, addicted to drugs, I also had I had a 1-year-old baby by then. When I was 19 years old, I had a baby. Things were not looking good. And I didn't have a lot of gumption really to save myself. And so somehow from there, I came to where I'm here sitting with you on this podcast 34 years later.
Yeah. So let's talk about that a little bit, because I think the reason I brought it up is because that is such a crazy place to go from that to where you are now, living in San Francisco, selling, multi-million-dollar homes and being a very successful realtor. So why don't we how'd you go from the tool shed and that kind of moment to getting into real estate?
Well, it wasn't a straight line. It wasn't like, if I got into real estate, maybe I'd stop snorting coke. It wasn't quite like that. It was more like this. I got to a place, actually it was November 18th, 1989, that I surrendered to, okay, I'm kind of screwed here. I need help. And so I sought out help. I found a group of people that clearly had been where I was, and they were no longer there. And those people gave me a whole new way of living. And so there was a real lifestyle change, total friend group change. Everything I did was different. And it was completely around, staying sober, getting better, engaging in a spiritual life, cleaning up the wreckage that I cleaned up. Like I mentioned, I was stealing money out of the cash register. So, paying people back and doing all the things so that I could be a free man and go from a place of like, I couldn't go a day without getting loaded. And all of a sudden I'm putting days together, weeks, and then months, and then years. And so that happened over, I spent a good 10 years really just focused on that. And I did things, but I didn't do anything in real estate. Somewhere around, it was 2004. So it was actually almost exactly 20 years ago that I kind of, like a lot of agents, I fell into real estate. In fact, I think it's the most common business that people fail at a whole bunch of other stuff before we get into real estate. And some of us in that context end up succeeding. And so there was no correlation between, getting clean and sober to going into real estate, except for I had learned a lot of things about ethics and taking good care of people and helping others. And that probably definitely helped when it came to getting clients and creating relationships and stuff like that.
So learning the very important life lessons that you can then translate into business.
I think so. I mean, we're in a relationship business. And so learning how to be interpersonal and interrelational and creating value for people in how you treat them and how you accommodate them, I think has everything to do with, the success that we create or don't create in the real estate business.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree with that. And it is absolutely a relationship business. Um, so, you were you were in a really bad spot doing drugs every day. Then it sounds like you had that epiphany, whatever it was, to seek
Yep.
help,
Yep.
join a group, get
Yep.
people around you that were
Yep.
living a different lifestyle, things
Yep.
like that. And then you found your way into real estate. And
Yeah.
then let's talk about how you kind of got in the business and then started leveling up.
Yeah. Right. So I was very fortunate. Of course, hindsight's 2020, but so I got my license in 2004, but I do my first deal for like 6 months. So right at the beginning of 2005, or maybe at the end of 2004, I did my first transaction. I did it kind of in a non-traditional way. I was actually a financial advisor. I kind of, like so many people, thought, wow, real estate's not that hard. I bet I could do that and be a financial guy. So I had my independent financial services, and I thought, oh, these clients, they like me already. I'll help them buy a house if they want. And so that's kind of how I started, very
Mm,
kind of naive. And actually, because the market was so great, I did a lot of deals in 2005 and 2006. So much so that, and I'm actually not in San Francisco proper, I'm about 30 minutes north, but I bought a really big, fancy, brand new house up on a hill with some property, and I had, a stay-at-home mom, wife, and I had 3 little kids, and
mm,
I mean, it all looked really great, on the outside, and I really
mm.
thought, oh, I've nailed it. I've finally arrived at this place where, this is where I'm supposed to be, and I really did love it. Um, and I'm imagining that for some of your listeners, if they've been in the business for 4 or 5 years, they recently had a similar experience where the market was helping them with this success, and that's what happened for me. And so then there was this, as you probably are aware, Oliver. I'm sure you were in the business in 2008 and 9.
Yep.
Yeah, it was brutal. And so if you're listening and you haven't been part of that, what we experienced in 2008 and 9, and for a few years after that, was the biggest market correction that anybody had ever seen, because the last time it was anything remotely like that was the Great Depression in 1929. So nobody that we were working with had any experience with what we were dealing with. And the volume of deals went down, but the inventory went up. You couldn't get anybody to do anything. And by September of 2009, I could not pay my mortgage. I had leveraged, I not paid my taxes in 2008. So I had this huge tax bill. I had this huge credit card debt. They took away my line of credit. My house that I bought for $1 million was now worth 650 grand. I'm in big, big trouble. You know what I mean? I just remember feeling this pressure on my chest every night. Like, what am I going to do here? I
Mm,
really don't know. And I also
mm.
realized that I wasn't the only one feeling that way, that everybody that bought a house, heck, everybody that bought a house from me was in that
Yep.
same boat to some extent. And so it became all about, okay, how can I help other people, deal with this circumstance? And so, you probably went through that as well. But the other bigger thing, and the bigger problem that I was having, was I wasn't really great at real estate. I was I got lucky. I got lucky in the way the market was going and the volume that was going on, but I really didn't know how to create business. I didn't know how to do lead gen. I didn't know how to be disciplined. I didn't know how to create relationships or have things in processes and systems in place to create a repeatable business. And so I really needed to, to get help with that again. And I'm sorry, I know I'm talking. I don't know if I had too much coffee or something, but you've asked me 3 questions and I've talked for 20 minutes. I apologize.
No, well, I was actually one of the things that I was wanting to talk to you about. You kind of already touched on, so let's go into that. But just to recap a little bit, you got into the business. It sounds like great timing. You had the winds of the
Yeah.
market behind you, so you were able to get in, sell a bunch of homes, which is very similar to your point about what people that have got in the last 3 or 4 years
Yeah.
have
Right.
kind of experienced. And then all of a sudden the market shifted in a big way, and then you were in a position where you were having a hard time paying the bills and all of that. So what did you do at that moment that started turning you back around in the right direction?
Yeah. Thank you. So I there was a company I was working for at the time that had a coaching or a class that they were offering. It was really intense. It was 8 weeks. It was every Monday for 8 hours. In fact, it was an hour and a half away. So it was 3 hours of driving to go to this live location where they had 250 agents all doing this program at once. And it was all about getting into action. It was all about leaning into the discomfort of doing all the things that I had heard you needed to do to be successful, but I was just totally unwilling to do it in the past. And in reality, all it was just talking to people in a purposeful way. But for me, I was like, no, I don't want to be that guy. I can't ask for business. I want people to just come to me naturally. I want to just be great and then know that I'm great. And which is just not how the world works, And so that 8-week class was $800. I couldn't afford it. I had to borrow the money to do it, but that was a total game changer for me because I was committed to doing it. It was funny. It was very similar to when I got cleaned up. It was like I was so desperate. I was so beaten down by my circumstances that I was way more willing to do the things that I needed to do. Whereas had I been faced with the same class 2 years before when things were great, I probably wouldn't have done it, to be honest.
Right.
But I did it. It really changed the whole direction of my career. And by 2014, I was like the number one guy in my 170 person office. And, I'd hired an assistant and blah, blah, and kind of the rest is history. And then from then till now, I've really been committed to having a coach. So that was a class, but it was also having a coach. And that's been the difference in my career.
Yeah, I do think the coaching is definitely a big part of it. Going back to just kind of you just had to do the things that you didn't want to do.
Yeah,
Let's talk about kind of what those things
sure.
were
Yeah.
and how you started doing them. Because I
Yeah.
think that's again really applicable again today
Yeah.
with the way the market is and people kind of getting back to basics.
Yeah, totally. So what I will say is I'll give you an example, a very specific example of what we needed to do that was definitely not what I wanted to do. And in fact, the very first day at that class, right at 11 o'clock, before, our lunch was going to be at 12, they put a slide up and they said, okay, for the next 45 minutes, we're going to call everybody in your phone, as many people as you can, and you're going to say these words. And the words were, hey, Barry, this is Rick. I'm taking this really great class right now, and we're having a contest to see who can generate the most leads. So who do you know that's thinking about buying a home, selling a home, or investing in real estate that I can call today? That was the script. And I read
Yeah.
that and I'm like, I am never doing that script. That's not how I talk. I'm not calling people and asking them that question. That's horrible. That's stupid. It's ridiculous. And then I went in the hallway and sat down and I started calling people doing that script. Right. And it was uncomfortable because I want to be a big shot. I don't want to ask for business, all the reasons, right? I don't want to bother my friends. This guy was a doctor. I use that guy, Barry, because he actually was the very first guy that I called. And this doesn't happen for everybody, but I did that. And I called Barry, I couldn't, he was a doctor, so he's not going to pick up the phone. I played tennis with the guy. He picks up the phone in the middle on a Monday, right? And, oh, hey, Rick, what's going on? I'm like, oh, hey, Barry. Yeah, Barry. So, I'm taking this really great class right now, and we're having a contest to see who can generate the most leads. Oh my God. And I was wondering, who do you know that's thinking about buying a home or selling a home or investing in real estate that I could call today? I mean, it was terrible, right? I was reading it. It didn't sound like me. I was like shaking, it was terrible. And he goes, oh, you're having a contest? I go, yeah, it's a contest. He goes, hey, I was just talking to my friend. His son's thinking about buying a house. Would that count for your contest? I go, well, yeah, it totally would. And he goes, okay, should I just connect you with him, or do I give him your number, or how do we do this? How do you get credit? He said, for the contest. And I was just shocked, right? I'm like, I go, oh, the thing, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so, and that guy, he gave me, that kid, he was a 21-year-old kid. And literally later that week, this is back when we were doing all the short sales and stuff. I was meeting with him and his mom and dad. I was showing him his very first house, and it was a short sale. That's a whole funny story. But the point is that, I never ever wanted to make that phone call, right? And part of what that 8-week class was, we made that conversation. We did that 20 times a day, 5 days a week. So 100 times a week, we were making that call. And for all 8 weeks. So that's 800 times. That's why I was able to rattle it off. That was 10 years ago. No, it was 14 years ago that I did that. And I still have it. It's still burned into my brain because I did what I was unwilling to do. And it made all the difference in the world, right? Now, yeah. I also just want to say to those people listening, if you're in that spot where like you need to make money right now, then a script like that is exactly what you need to do, right?
Yeah.
Now, I have not used that script in a long, long time because I learned how to create so many great relationships, and I'm so purposeful about how I stay in front of people that, we call it living in the flow. I live in the flow of my business. I don't let off when I have 6 escrows going, I still talk to 50 people a week. My thing is not 100 people a week. It's 50 people a week. I talk to 50 people a week. I meet face-to-face with 15 people a week. I write 10 thank you cards every week. I do it every week, week in and week out, except for when I take a vacation. And so by being consistent like that, as things get sideways or they go slow, when things are great, when they're slow, I do the same thing all the time. And so I don't really use that script anymore, but it worked.
That's great. And do you remember how much all those 800 calls generated?
That's a really great question. I could have told you, right after the class, yes.
Right.
But no, I don't know. But I know
but I'm sure it was a lot.
It was a lot. It was, I can think of like 7 transactions that happened off the top of my head, just from making those calls. And they were not, these weren't even like direct people. Like, for example, to talk to 20 people a day, if you don't have a database that's big, you have to talk to everybody. So like, for example, another story was there was a pizza place across from my office. I went to get pizza. I need to make my 20 calls for the day, or just 20 conversations. It doesn't have to be phone calls. So I get up, I order my, hey, pepperoni pizza. By the way, I'm taking this really great class right now, and we're having a contest to see who can generate the most leads. Who do you know that's thinking about buying a home, selling a home, or investing in real estate that I can call today? There's people behind me in line. And I'm saying this to the lady because I want to get my 20 conversations in, right? And her name was Nancy. And Nancy goes, oh, my son, Raphael, we're just talking about buying a house. Could you help us? Would that count? That happened. And I sold him a house, that was a total cold call at a pizza place because I was trying to get my 20 calls in. So it was that kind of experience. It's a numbers game, right?
And I think that story actually perfectly illustrates why it works. Because like, you were at the pizza place. Normally you're never going to do that in a million years.
Oh,
but
right.
Because you were in that zone of like, I'm just committed to doing this.
Yeah.
You asked the cashier, and then because you did that, the person behind you heard it, and now you got a lead out of it, right? And
no, that's not. So the cashier was the person that I sold the house to. Her name was Nancy. She turns out she was the owner. She was the co-owner with her send Raphael the name of the pizza place. It was Rafi's Pizza. And that's,
Amazing.
so that's really what it was. It was the lady that I actually asked. My point, but the people behind me, was that I didn't even let the fact that there were people behind me get in the way
Right.
of even having the, because I knew it was going to take that long and I could check the box.
Yep. Yeah, no, I love that. That's a great strategy. And I think that's a great way for anybody that right now is looking to make money or generate transactions. Like, open up your phone and just do exactly what you
Yeah.
just said.
Create a
Verbatim,
fake
same
contest. You're
script.
not, yeah, exactly. You don't have to actually have a contest, but create something with 2 or 3 accountability partners or a group or whatever. I mean, the contest can be, whoever does the most gets free pizza, whatever. It doesn't, but something that you believe, right? And
Yep.
you can call me. It's easy to get a hold of me. I'll give you the script. I'll just text it to you in case you want to know it again or play this back in slow motion.
That's awesome. Yeah, yeah. No, I love that. And then from what I heard you just say, you said 50 contacts a day or a
Yeah.
week,
Yeah.
15
Right.
face-to-faces,
Yeah.
10 cards.
Yep. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then
And then
is that
three ideally. Now I'm not doing this currently, but the idea is to get 3 videos out a week. Something doesn't have to be necessarily real estate. And then I want to be at least 2 events per week. Right. So this is the
love that.
breakdown of what our process is on a weekly basis. And then the other things that we do in conjunction with that maintenance of creating that the systems and processes in place is that we make sure that our database, that we're creating a know, like, and trust by kind of 2 ways. One is that every month they get some kind of evidence of success, something that says, oh, Rick sold another house, or Rick's team sold a house. Or if you're a newer agent, you can say, somebody in our company, like our company sold this house, whatever it is, something that
Mhm.
shows, hey, we're doing this thing, or I just listed this house, or here's somebody to help buy a house, whatever. And then the other thing that we do is that we send out every 1 or 2 months a letter that we call the below the waterline letter, but it's a letter that's got literally nothing to do with real estate. It's got to have nothing. You can't even like slip it in on the side. It's got to be completely some humanitarian, whatever, some life experience story, some story that you heard about, something that you learned. Like I just had one go out this week, and it was all about me learning how to reconnect with my dad, who's 80. Not reconnect. Well, yeah, I guess reconnect. But I recreated this relationship with my dad that I thought was never going to happen. And I took people through the experience of what happened that led me there. That story is, people love it. It's inspiring. It was very meaningful to me, but it's got nothing to do with real estate. But I send out letters like that 10 to 6 times a year. And each one of them helps the people know me a little bit better. It helps me stay in front of them. There's a know, like, and trust factor there. And between those 2 things, we're creating a know, like, and trust, because it's the likability around the vulnerability and who you are as a person. And then there's the trust part. Oh, this guy sells a lot of houses.
I love that. And is that the same as the Navigator system you developed, or is that something different? Let's talk about that next, because
Right.
I know
So
that's something you're well
yeah,
known for.
yeah, exactly. So the Navigator system that we created is all about taking all those things that we talked about and put it into practice. Because I can tell you all day long, hey, these are the things you should do. I knew, of course, having been coached and having gone to these classes or listening to YouTube or whatever you talk, the successful agents, they basically all say the same thing. You got to talk to a lot of people. You got to meet face to face with a lot of people. You got to write thank you cards. You got to do mailers and so forth. Knowing it and doing it are really not at all the same thing, right? And I found myself knowing a lot of stuff and not doing enough. And at the end of the day, I'd be like, man, I didn't do that thing again I said I was going to do. And so about 4 years ago, almost 5 years ago, I created this daily accountability form that help me stay accountable to what I had intended to do in the morning, because I would have all this energy in the morning. There would be like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to call this many people. And then there was nobody that was keeping track of that. except me. And then I would get distracted by a squirrel, or my emotions would go up or down. I'd get a deal I didn't think, or I'd lose a deal, or whatever it was. And next thing you know, or I just forget, I've got ADD, I get off track, whatever it was. And then, I'm at the end of the day, and here I am, another day where I didn't talk to as many people as I thought I was going to talk to. I didn't, I wasn't purposeful about being face-to-face or whatever it is. And so the form that we created, it's called the Daily Navigator, is a form that I choose every morning. Here's the things I'm going to do. And I quantify it. I'm going to talk to 10 people. I'm going to meditate for 30 minutes. I'm going to exercise. I'm going to run 5 miles. I'm going to be face-to-face with this many people today, and so forth and so on. All the things that I just told you that I do on a regular basis, I quantify that in a daily. And then the most important thing, what's different, is that I sign it like a contract. And by the way, I'm not writing all this out. This is a form that we help each person create their own version of this. But I sign it like a contract, and then I send it out to my accountability group. And now as I go through the day and I start thinking, oh, I'm not feeling like doing that thing I said I was going to do, I know that I let my ego work for me, which is like, oh, I don't want to have been said. I don't want to said that I did something, was going to do something and not do it. I don't want those people, my accountability, I don't want to let them down. And so I get my stuff done. And so I run it like a 99%. It's rare that I don't do all the things I put on my list. It's very rare. And the list is what we call a must-do list. It is not a to-do list. This is not a laundry list of, like, oh, I'm going to call that guy back. And so this is like, these are must-dos that we put on that list. So
I love that. Yeah, I love that, because initially when you told me, 50 contacts a week, 15 face-to-faces, 10 written cards, 3 videos, 2 events, that sounds like a lot. And unless you're very intentional about it and you have a system and you have accountability, which is what I wanted to ask you about, but it sounds like you've got that part figured out with that daily thing that you built. And I think what I'm hearing you say is that you're basically breaking down those core activities into daily kind of action lists and then sharing them with accountability partners. Is that?
Yeah, that's exactly right. There's an accountability group that gets a copy of what I say I'm going to do, and then they send me theirs. So we're all sending each other our accountability forms, and we pare it down. So even there's a larger group, but then we pare it into buddies. So there's at least one set of eyes that's making sure that, hey, did that person turn in their daily navigator in the morning? We have everybody turn it in by 9 a.m. So at 9 a.m. you have to either communicate, hey, I'm not doing it today, or I will have it, but it won't be till later, or you've turned it in. And then again at 6 o'clock at night, you either turn in a completed daily navigator, or you say, I haven't done it yet, but I'll get it by 7, or I'm not going to finish till 11 o'clock at night, whatever it is. And I'll turn it in the morning. But there's accountability to everything that we do. The other thing, if you don't mind, I know that for most people, they're going to hear all those numbers and be like, oh my God, keep that guy away from me. I could never talk to that many people. And I promise you that is definitely how I thought. And so it's just like learning to be a runner or doing any kind of exercise or learning how to do anything, really. It's you start off slow and you're purposeful and you build up to that. I can have 50 conversations with long before the week's over, very easily. And those conversations, by the way, are always leading to my face-to-faces, right? So they all are working together. In some of my conversations, I'm setting up lunches with people. Many of those people I set up lunches with regular. These are people that I'm always connecting with. Some of them are new listings or new buyers, of course. Those count as face-to-faces as well. And then some of them are, some of my face-to-faces are at the events that I'm already going to. And that's why I go to the events, to create those face-to-faces. And when I have a lunch with somebody, or when I meet somebody at an event, I write a thank you card. Like they're, you know what I mean? They're all interrelated. So it's not like these 6 completely different tasks. They're just all going together. But the idea is that you're purposely creating this know, like, and trust relationship with people, right? And we coach people on how do you communicate with people, and how do you create that know, like, and trust when you are talking to them? What do you talk about? And who are the people that you call? And what do you talk about when you're when you're on the phone with them, right? I mean, because what we're definitely not doing is talking about real estate, right?
Yeah. Um, Yeah, so I love that. I love everything you said there. I definitely agree that they all kind of bleed into one another. And as far as 50 contacts a week, like, I mean, you break that down, that's only 10 per day,
10 per day.
if you're working 5 days a week. And then if again, you're just integrating it into your daily life, like the pizza example, where you're asking
Yeah.
the checkout person at the gas station, you're asking your server at lunch. Like there's
Yeah.
just when you do it like that, it's almost like how could you not get 10 a
Well,
day?
that's
And
when
it
I
just
was
seems
doing
like
20 per day, but yes, exactly. Yes.
yeah,
There's
yeah,
but it is a new muscle for a lot of I talked to a gal
right,
today, right? She called me this morning. She's going to write an offer on a house that I have listed. And I know her and I go, "Hey, how are you doing?" I'll call her Joey. "How you doing, Joey?" Well, I'm just waiting for this market to turn around. And I'm like, "Joey, don't now." So now you're at the mercy of the market, right? That's like
yeah,
every other agent. The way the market turns around is by you creating the business. I said, "How many people are you talking to every day?" She goes, 2 or 3. I said, "We've got to get that up to 10 a day." Oh my God, who am I gonna? And so I get it. Like that is what most agents are thinking. That's where most agents are at. They're just waiting for the market to come back around. And first of all, it may not come back around. Whatever we experienced in 2021 and 22, where most of us were crushing it, that we don't know if and when that's going to come around. And so learning how to be purposeful about creating these relationships is going to be vital, or you're not going to make it.
yeah, yeah. No, I totally agree with that. And I think the most important piece is the accountability part. And so I like how you've kind of structured it with a group of people. And I'm curious because I've tried this in the past with people, and I found that, they were very motivated at the beginning and they would kind of trail off.
Yeah.
How are you keeping the accountability like tight? Are there any like punishments or rewards for not doing things?
Yeah. Right.
How do you look at that?
So that's a great question. I think the answer is the community that we've created where they're seeing everybody else doing it. We definitely do not have any punishments um, or prizes or something for doing something right. Although I can totally see how that might be viable for some people. Our community is really collaborative and like kind of rooting for each other. And the idea is more around, are we communicating? And remember, everybody's choosing what they want to do that day. So I don't write anybody else's daily navigator for them. They write their own. It's kind of like, okay, so if you weren't able to do the thing that you said only a few hours ago that you wanted to do, what's coming up for you that happened? Right? That's more the conversation that we're having. So there's no punishment, there's no feeling bad, there's no shame. It's just, hey, what's going on? You were the one that decided that you wanted to do this. It was only hours ago that happened. Did you take on too many things? Should we reduce what you should be trying to do? Or did you have bad time management during the day? What is coming up let's create some success, but we also look at it like kind of one day at a time, right? Or as one of my coaches said, when I was not having a great day and I was like, man, I didn't do the things I said I was going to do. This is pre-daily navigator. And she's like, win the day that you're on, right? Which I think is brilliant, right? We all get a new day every day. The daily navigator is a new day every day. So you didn't win last night. You did your best. Tomorrow's a new day. But if you consistently are not winning today, you have to look at what is going on that's making that happen, right? Do we need to have a
Makes sense.
breakthrough? What's missing, the presence of which will make a difference,
Mm, yeah.
right?
No, that's really good. And so for someone looking to put this into practice, what would you suggest to them? Is it going to an event and meeting people? Is it going to people within the office? Like, what do you think is a way
So in
to
terms of now, are you asking me like how to create an accountability group or
yeah, yeah, like
so
how would
so
someone want to do that?
yeah, exactly. So you can do, I think from what I've said, you can totally create everything I've already told you, right? Or you can go to our website, flowcademy.com, and download a fillable version that you can create yourself. And then you can create your own accountability group. It does not need to be massive, right? But what it does need is we think it needs at least one of three kinds of people. It needs a mentor. A mentor could be an actual mentor. It could be a coach. It could be a manager, somebody that you look up to in your office, right? It needs at least one peer, somebody that you're on the front lines with, that you guys are doing the same stuff. You're facing the same challenges every day. And then you want to have somebody that you are mentoring, somebody that you are being a leader for, somebody that you are wanting to be a good example for, which could be, by the way, your own kids, right? You want to say, hey, this is what mom or dad does every day. I talk to this many people. Here's the things that I do to make sure that we have a roof over our head and we have food in our, fridge or whatever it is. But having that's what the accountability group is made of. And by the way, they have to be in real estate. When I first started this, I was sending this to people that were not doing the Daily Navigator. It was, at the time, it was called Day of a Champion. And I was just sending to them just some accountability group. I had an IT guy or a tech guy that was getting it. I had a lender that was getting it. I had an electrician that was getting it for a while. Like, it didn't matter who I sent it to. To me, the more the merrier, right? I had a coach that I was sending it to. I had a manager. I had people that I was mentoring, that I was trying to be a good example to, that I was sending it to. And what mattered was really my own ego, right? The more people I sent it to, the more I was going to be disappointing or letting them down if I didn't do the thing I said I was going to do. And it became self-fulfilling, because when I was done and I scratched off that last thing and I took a picture of it and I sent it back out to them, I felt great. And I actually had an end to my day, which prior to that, in real estate, I didn't seem like I ever had an end of the day, because I was like, oh, I didn't do the thing I said I was going to do. And now I'm sitting at dinner with my family and I'm not even paying attention to them, because I'm thinking about, what about that thing that I didn't do that I said I was going to do, right? And so this is why I go back to, I don't know if I said it on this podcast or not, but, I not only do I sell a lot of real estate, I do fine, $20 to $25 million a year. But even better than that, I work 40 hours or less. I rarely work nights and weekends, right? Because I have a whole system and process to do all that stuff. And it's largely based on this daily navigator. And then we have a weekly navigator, and we have a quarterly navigator, which is more famously called the 30, 60, 90, where we help people with some short-term goals. But it's just really getting in there and being purposeful about your day, rather than letting your day run you, which is what happens with most agents.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think it's really cool the way you've set it up. I think, it kind of checks all the boxes. It gives you a daily action plan.
Right.
It gives you the accountability on the back end to make sure you're actually doing what you say you're going to do.
Yeah.
And then also just the daily satisfaction you're going to feel
Yes.
of, to your point, feeling like I checked everything off, like
Yeah.
I won the day today. I
Exactly.
think that,
Exactly. And
yeah,
if
I
you're an
think that's
ADD
really,
person, this is even better for you, because with ADD, man, it is so hard to stay on track. It's so hard to stay, focused and being purposeful. But if you have a task list that you're looking at and people are counting on it, it tends to really be helpful to those guys. So,
yeah, no, absolutely. Well, that's really cool. So obviously you've given the blueprint, and I know that you actually offer this through your coaching as well.
yeah.
So for someone that wants, to jump in and do like a more turnkey type of thing with you,
Yeah.
how would they get a hold of you?
So you can follow me on Instagram, the Rick Warner, but our coaching website is flowcademy.com. And on there we have our undergraduate program, which is it's a 8-class intensive, and we really take you through the daily, the weekly, the quarterly navigator. We talk about the mailers, who to send to what, when. We give you the logic behind all that. We talk about gifting. We talk about client events, all the things that create this kind of systems and processes that allows for your business to just come your way naturally. You know what I mean? Where you're not having to make those calls that say, hey, it's, hey, Oliver, it's Rick. I'm taking this great class right now. We're having a contest. When things are in big trouble, I guess I have to make those calls. But what I really want to do is just create so many relationships and be purposeful about it, that people are just calling me when it's time. Right. And so we take you through the setup of all that. that class is $1,500, but if they reach out to me directly, maybe through Instagram, because they're listening from, if they're coming from your company, we'll give them a $500 discount off that. So it'll be $1,000. Just have them reach out to me directly. And then once you've done that, then we have, and we were talking about this a little bit offline, but we created kind of an Orange Theory membership for that daily accountability, and then other classes that happen. And that's only $200 a month for, live coaching, but even more importantly, the daily accountability that goes with that. You can't do the $200 a month thing without having take the other one. That's the only challenge there.
Exactly. And that's the daily accountability done for you. So I like that. So one thing, I like to end with a couple questions. But before I do, one thing that I keep hearing throughout this episode is relationships and the importance of relationships. So why don't you talk to me about just how you're building and nurturing those relationships?
Yeah, great question. So the thing about relationships is that they could occur naturally. I mean, maybe not everybody, but a lot of people have those, those close friends or whatever that they connect with. But you can't have 4 or 5 friends and expect that to be your real estate business. So how do you take and be purposeful about creating that kind of relationship with masses of people? And the way you do it is by doing the things that we've already talked about. But when you talk to them, it's the conversation is about them, right? The conversation, like, I love the Ford acronym, ask them questions about their family, their occupation, their recreation, their dreams. And you don't say, tell me about your family. You go, hey, like I was talking to a woman earlier today, and she shared with me that she had a baby a year ago. So I dive in. That's her family. So tell me what it's been like to have a baby for the last year. And she says whatever she says. And then I go, gosh, what were your biggest challenges over the last year becoming a mom for the first time? And then she says whatever she says. And I go, what was the greatest moment that's happened so far? Because it sounds like, I remember when I had kids, it was so exciting. What was your greatest moment? Blah, blah, blah. And so now I'm developing a relationship with her about her. And then she hangs up the phone and thinks, what? God, that guy was really great. I didn't say anything about myself. Right. And so it's those kind of skills. And then listening to the answers and so forth. I'm kind of giving you the super brief version, but it's being purposeful about creating that kind of world for somebody so that when they see you again, they're like, oh, there's that guy, right? Oh, I like, by the way, you can do this at open houses, right? It's the same model. Yeah. It's like, be curious about other people. Tell me more about that, right? And then what happened? Like, just be with them. And then somewhere in there, they probably will say something like, so how's the market? Because they know you're in real estate. And then have a really good answer for how the market is. Don't say, oh man, I'm really busy, or gosh, the inventory is really low. Like, quantify it, turn it into something where when they're done with talking to you, they go, wow, that guy really knows what he's talking about, right? Because we're the most commoditized industry, career in the world, right? Everybody thinks real estate, everybody can do real estate. It's easy. That's why you guys have to fight for your commissions, right? You have to fight for your commission because you're in their mind, in the consumer's mind, you're a commodity. I don't fight for commission. I get 3% every single time because of the way I talk to them. I don't have to, I uncommoditize what I do. I separate myself from every other agent, right? And so that's also part of the whole nother conversation, but that is, that's another thing that we teach.
Yeah, that's great. And I think being purposeful again is another theme throughout the interview of just being purposeful about creating those relationships. And then as far as having a good answer to the how's the market, one of our go-tos is it depends. Are you looking to buy or sell or invest? And then, and then all of a sudden now you're like really talking about real estate.
Yeah.
So
I think that's a great answer. I think that, anything that gets you in a conversation, but also really raises the level. So if whatever they say, and let's say they say buy, then have a great story that's real for them, right? Not a throwaway line, something that has, something that says to them, God, that guy really knows what's going on in the market. Like, know what the inventory is in your market every day, right? Just so that you can say, well, actually, it's really crazy right now because we have 63 active listings in Petaluma and we sell about 70 per month. So that means we're still just under a month's worth of inventory. And what that means to you as the buyer is still favors the seller. And so it means that you really, if you're going to be buying a house, you really need to be somebody that really knows how to get in there and get your offer accepted, even though there's multiple offers on the table, and knowing how to do that and communicate with the seller and the listing agent. I mean, it's not uncommon for us to get a house, an offer accepted that wasn't even the highest price, but because we tailored the offer to exactly what the seller wanted, we got the offer anyway, right? So that's a story that you can say, it took me 30 seconds, but it quantifies what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I love that. Well, this has been really great. I got one final question for you, and this
Yes.
is
Coke or Pepsi? Sorry. Old. You gotta be old to know that one.
I remember the Pepsi Coke challenge, doing
Yeah.
those in person at
Yeah.
the
Right.
water park in Disneyland and all
Yeah,
that.
that's right.
um, in 60 seconds or less, what does it take to be a massively successful realtor in today's market?
I mean, it's what we've been talking about. Be consistent about creating relationships, consistent and persistent. Know that your database is it's like a living, breathing thing. So just because you have 400 people in your database doesn't mean that 20 or 30 of them should be lopping off. They're naturally getting rid of themselves or moving away, whatever. You always have to be filling in and looking for those opportunities to create new relationships. But the basis of relational, right? It is not going to happen with Zillow leads. It's not going to happen with anything else. It's get in front of people, eyeball to eyeball, be with them, so that when it's time to do it, they're going to do it with you.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's the tried and true belly to belly, making contacts,
Yeah,
building relationships
yeah,
that
and that's
and
why.
that only works every time in any market.
Yeah, that's right. That's
Yeah.
exactly That's exactly the point. That's why this young lady today, she's like, well, if the market, no, not the market. Lead gen solves everything,
Mm,
right?
yep.
And lead gen
Yep.
is just relational.
Well, that's a perfect note to end on. Go out there, build some relationships. Make sure you connect with Rick on Instagram at the Rick Warner. If you're interested, you can check out some of his coaching programs as well. Make sure you also check out the links in the description below. And as always, if you like money and you like real estate, this is the show for you. We'll see you on the next one.